Dear students, today I will teach you 3 questions written by Leo Tolstoy. Before started reading this story, I am trying to tell you what the story is about. I am trying to tell you what the story is about. The story is about a Tsar and a hermit. There are also some other characters like a bearded man and some greedy counselors. So you know that this is a story about a Tsar, a hermit, a stranger, and some counselors. Now, let us read the text. It once occurred to a certain Tsar that if he always knew the right time to begin everything, if he knew who were the right people to listen to and whom to avoid, and above all, if he always knew what was the most important thing to do, he would never fail in anything he might undertake. Actually, you see, the Tsar was a good ruler. He always thought for the welfare of his citizens. He always thought for the welfare of his citizens. One day, 3 questions arose in his mind. One day, 3 questions arose in his mind, and he thought if he would get the answers to his 3 questions, he would be able to give his subjects a good governance. He would be able to give his subjects a good governance. What were the 3 questions? He thought, if he knew the right time to start or to begin any work. He thought if he would know the right time to start or begin any work. The second question that arose in his mind, if he knew the persons whom she would rely on, if he knew who were the reliable persons to him, who were the reliable persons to him. In other words, whom he should believe, or whom he should rely on, and whom he should avoid. The third question that arose in his mind was that how he would decide to which work he should give more importance, to which work he should give more importance. He should prioritize. He should prioritize. Clear? And this thought having occurred to him, he had it proclaimed throughout his kingdom that he would give a great reward to anyone who would teach him what was the right time for every action and who were the most necessary people and how he might know what was the most important thing to do. As these three questions arose in his mind, he wanted to get the answer to all his three questions. To do so, he announced or he proclaimed a good reward, a great reward. He would give rewards to the persons who would give him the right answers to his three questions. To get the answers, he proclaimed throughout his kingdom that anybody who would be able to give answers to all his three questions, he would be rewarded. Clear? And learned men came to the Tsar, but they answered his questions differently. And learned men came to the Tsar, but they all answered his questions differently. Having heard the proclaim of the Tsar, having heard the announcement of the Tsar, the learned men came to him with a hope to get a handsome reward for answering the questions. Having heard the proclaim or the announcement of the Tsar, a group of learned men came to him with a hope to get a handsome reward for giving answers to the Tsar's three questions, for answering the Tsar's three questions. But their answers were different. Different. In reply to the first question, some said that to know the right time for every action, one must draw up in advance a table of days, months, and years, and must live strictly according to it. A group of learned men answered that if the Tsar wanted to know the right time to begin any action, he should, that means the Tsar should draw up in advance a calendar of days, month, and year and act accordingly. The Tsar should draw up a timetable of months, timetable of days, months, and year and act accordingly. And if the Tsar would do so, he he would be able to decide what is the right time to begin any action. Clear? Only thus, said they, could everything be done at its proper time. If the Tsar would draw up a timetable, then he would be able to do anything according to the timetable. They opined this. Opine means to express their opinion. To express their opinion. Others declared that it was impossible to decide beforehand the right time for every action. Another group of learned men did not agree with them. Another group of learned men did not agree with them. They believed that it was not possible to know the right time. It was not possible for any person to know the right time for doing any action in advance. It would not be possible for anyone to know the right time to start any work or to begin any work in advance. But that not letting oneself be absorbed in idle pastime, one should always attend to all that was going on. But they thought, though it was not possible for a man to know the right time to begin any action in advance, but it would not be good for them to pass their time idly thinking over the past action. They should pay attention to the ongoings. They should pay attention to the ongoings. That means they should pay attention to the present. Others again said that however attentive the Tsar might be to what was going on, it was impossible for one man to decide correctly the right time for every action. Another group of learned men did not agree with them. They thought, if the Tsar paid his attention to the ongoing actions, to the present, yet he would not be able to know what would be the right time to begin any action. But that he should have a council of wise men who would help him to fix the proper time for everything. What the Tsar should do according to them? What the Tsar should do according to them? According to them, the Tsar should appoint or engage a council of wise men who would guide the Tsar, who would guide the Tsar, and who would help the Tsar to decide the right time for starting any work. Clear? But then again, others said there were some things which could not wait to be laid before a council. But some people, some learned men did not agree with them. They thought that there must be something, there must be some sacred thing which the Tsar should not expose before the councils. Which the Tsar should not expose.
Before the council.
Which the Tsar should not reveal. Which the Tsar should not reveal before the council. But about which one had at once to decide whether to undertake them or not. But about which one had at once to decide whether to undertake them or not. They should decide what they should undertake, what they should take into their consideration, or what they should not. It is only magicians who know that. According to them, only magicians could tell everything in advance. They thought that only magicians could tell beforehand everything in advance. They thought that the only magicians could tell what would happen in future. So, in order to know the right time for every action, one must consult a magician. So, to know the right time for every action, the Tsar should consult a magician. Clear? Equally varies were the answers to the second question. Equally varied were the answer to his second question. The Tsar also got several answers to his second question. The Tsar also got several answers from them in respect of his second questions. Some said the people the Tsar most needed were his counselors. Some opined, some gave their opinion. Some thought that the counselors were the most important persons to the Tsar. Others, the priest, another group thought. A group of learned men thought that the priest should be the right persons for the Tsar, to whom the Tsar should rely on. The priest would be the right person to whom the Tsar should rely on, to whom the Tsar should believe. Other group of learned men thought that doctors. Some learned men thought that the doctors should be the most important persons to the Tsar. Clear? While some said the warriors were the most necessary, some learned men believed that the warriors who would keep the kingdom safe and secured were the most important persons to the Tsar. Some thought that the soldiers who would keep the safety and security of the king along with his kingdom should be the most important person to the Tsar. So you see that they gave different opinions. Their answers varied. To the third question as to what was the most important occupation, some replied that the most important thing in the world was science. What was the Tsar's third question? To what type, to what work he should give emphasis. He should give emphasis. He should emphasize. He should give more importance. To his third question, some answered that most important thing in the world is science. The Tsar should give more importance on science. Some learned men advised the Tsar that he should give more importance to science. Clear? কিছু ব্যক্তি বলল জারের উচিত হবে বিজ্ঞানের উপর সবথেকে বেশি গুরুত্ব আরোপ করা। The Tsar should give more importance on science. সায়েন্সের উপরই হবে জারের বেশি গুরুত্ব দেওয়া উচিত। Clear? Others said it was skill in warfare. Another group of learned men opined that the Tsar should give more importance in warfare. Warfare means building ability to fight. Another group of learned men opined that the Tsar should give more importance on warfare and skill. Again, some people did not agree with them. They thought that the Tsar should give more importance on religious worship. Clear? Religious worship মানে হচ্ছে ধর্মীয় উপাসনা। ক্লিয়ার? ধর্মীয় উপাসনার উপর জারের বেশি গুরুত্ব দেওয়া উচিত। ক্লিয়ার? This is all for today.